Will the iPhone 13 finally destroy Samsung? The two companies have been embroiled in this bitter feud for years, constantly taking shots at the other, but now with the launch of the iPhone 13 coming soon, is now a chance for Apple to finally end Samsung for good? Or has this just become one of those things, like a lot of stuff, that we just like to argue about in the YouTube comments below videos? I think the whole feud between Apple and Samsung is over for the most part because of this, and also because of this. Let me explain.
Now, many of these customers were switchers from Android. They had bought an Android phone by mistake.
I could never get a Samsung. I'm creative.
Dude, you're a barista.
But seriously, I am excited about the new Samsung. Not the phone, the refrigerator. Hubba hubba.
What's going on over there?
Oh no. They come here all the time.
It's safe to say that both companies don't mind taking jabs at the other, though one company still seems to throw more punches than the other, but that's besides the point. There is no room here for fanboyism or favoritism. This is not personal, it's strictly just business, and I think this whole feud of Apple versus Samsung has a pretty clear beginning, middle, and now mostly an end. Some might be surprised to know that Apple and Samsung actually have a very long, complicated, but fruitful relationship dating back decades, even well before the original iPhone launched in 2007. In fact, in 2005, it was Samsung that became the exclusive supplier of flash memory for the iPod line, a move that would cement both Apple and Samsung as real big players in the tech industry and really forward thinkers that were adopting cutting edge, bleeding edge technology that would, of course, go on to be the standard in just about everything. And the two worked together pretty well. That wasn't until after the iPhone, when the very first Galaxy phone was released by Samsung, that looks strikingly similar to the original iPhone. Now, with the rising popularity of this new mobile OS called Android and Samsung making their own phones, there was probably no one more upset or irate on planet Earth than Steve Jobs himself. He told his biographer that he would spend every penny of Apple's $40 billion in the bank to fight Android, and he would go thermonuclear war on Android. Steve believed that Android was a ripoff of the iPhone's operating system, and he also believed that Samsung was not only a ripoff of the software, but also a ripoff of the hardware as well. He really, really hated Samsung. Surprisingly though, Steve Jobs did try to settle this dispute before it got out of hand, even approaching Samsung and asking them if they wanted to use the patents that Apple had developed. They could if they were willing to pay a small licensing fee of $30 per Samsung phone sold or $40 per Samsung tablet sold. Obviously, Samsung didn't go for it, and this major tech rivalry began. This fight between Apple and Samsung would actually outlive Steve Jobs. In fact, the two companies would duke it out in court from 2011 to 2018, and over that 7-year window, one company got a win, other company lost, then the other company got some wins, and the other company got some losses. There was really no clear winner for the most part, but they spent a lot of time and money feuding this out in the courtroom. And as all this was going on, there was a bigger feud brewing in the court of public opinion, and that was iOS versus Android, the iPhone versus a number of different Android phones, and the competition was really on. Which phone had the best design? Which was the sleekest? What had the most cutting-edge technology, the best screen, built-in 4G LTE connectivity? There was really a question of which one was better, and it wasn't really Samsung versus Apple, it was more Apple versus everyone else. HTC, BlackBerry, Motorola, Samsung, there were a number of different handset manufacturers developing and releasing Android phones. But all that would change as Samsung decided that they wanted to be kind of a head macho man on the Android side, and they wanted to square off against Apple directly and really take on the iPhone. Around 2011, Samsung made some big decisions and some big shakeups internally to really divert their advertising away from rebates and carriers and Samsung phones on those carriers to just promoting Samsung the brand and those phones exclusively themselves. Samsung did a lot to sort of shift the public's opinion of the brand, and they did a lot to make sure that they would come out on top in the smartphone war. And they chose specifically not to go against Motorola or BlackBerry, HTC, or other companies sort of in the Android Android sphere, they just wanted to go against Apple directly. They didn't want the debate to be iOS versus Android, but Apple versus Samsung. And it was around this time that those infamous Samsung ads began to play for the first time on TV and online, and boy oh boy, it definitely not only caught the attention of Apple, but also the general public as well. And I do have to give Samsung credit where credit is due. I didn't really always love those ads or necessarily agree with what they were doing at the time, but they did make some decisions over the years that really did shape and influence the smartphone industry that we know today. They weren't afraid to experiment, to try new things, to put a lot of cutting edge technology into their phones, and they should have some acknowledgement and some thanks for that. Just look at the original Galaxy Note, for example. That phone dwarfed the competition literally when it debuted in 2011, and it had what was at the time a massive 5.3-inch display. And you might remember it was bigger than a phone, but smaller than a tablet, so a lot of people started calling it a phablet. Remember that word? And year after year, Samsung and Apple would sort of duke it out to see who could build the best phone for the consumer. Apple made sleek, stylish, premium phones. Samsung was making phones of sort of every shape and size, really trying to cater towards everybody at that point, and they really wanted to be top dog. In fact, it was reported that this iOS versus Android debate didn't just happen, on chat rooms or on YouTube comments. It actually existed in Samsung HQ itself. Executives actually had to split up teams of iOS and Android users to stop the debates from happening inside of the office. That was how important this thing was, and that is why Samsung was so dead set on trying to beat Apple. But as time has gone on, and seeing that it's now over 10 years since really this feud took off, where are we in the whole Apple versus Samsung, iPhone versus Android debate? Well, things have certainly changed for better and worse, and I feel like now these days, it's not so much Samsung versus Apple anymore. There's a whole debate about iOS versus Android and where that debate is these days, but I think really Apple and Samsung are still sort of doing their own thing. In my opinion, it seems like Samsung has spent a lot of time over the past couple of years to sort of change the way they market their phones, and even in a sense, the way they build their phones. Yes, of course, they are still trying to get as many people to buy their phones as possible. They would love to see a lot of iOS people convert over to Android and buy a Samsung phone. But it seems like more and more, Samsung is now just trying to dial in their strategy to cater to their audience. They want to build a flagship high-end premium phone for the Android enthusiasts. It's going to have the best camera system you can get, a large, beautiful display. It's going to have experimental features, cutting-edge technology. Samsung's kind of on their own path and really trying to do their own thing. And yes, of course, they're still trying to convert iPhone users. They're still making a lot of phones in the mid-range space, in the low-end space. But I feel like at least their marketing is really more focused on that high-end enthusiast Android user with the Note line and the S21 Ultra and these higher-end flagship phones they make. They're really looking at the higher end of consumers when they're marketing their phones. Even take a look at their folding phones, the Z Fold and the Z Flip. These are not so much geared towards iPhone users as they're geared towards tech enthusiasts, people in the space, and a lot less your grandma or aunt, uncle, or parent who's just looking to buy a new regular phone. Apple, on the other hand, has sort of just kind of remained status quo. They continue to make just a handful of iPhone models each year that just sort of focus on the average consumer, your mom, your dad, your grandparent, your cousin, even you Pro and iPhone user as well. We also have to give Apple credit where credit is due for them as well, because many people argue that Samsung was doing a lot of things better than Apple, and Apple needed to change some of their ways. A lot of people argue that Samsung was making these nice, lower-end, mid-tier phones, and Apple didn't compete well in that space. Well, Apple introduced the iPhone SE and showed that they are more than willing to compete and offer a great value phone at that price. You also just have to look at the tablet market and say that, well, Apple has certainly dominated that. iPad is synonymous with any tablet, any Android tablet, and they've certainly kind of taken the crown on that one. And also with the smartwatch industry, Samsung has their wearables and other companies are doing their thing, but the Apple Watch is just dominating the industry. So Apple has had some missteps and they've fixed some things, but also credit where credit is due, they're doing some great things as well and kind of showing that they're willing to compete with Samsung in multiple different areas. And again, as all of this is happening sort of in front of the stage, behind the scenes, Apple and Samsung are working closely together as well. They're continuing to work together on a lot of major things. We just saw some news that with the iPhone 13, Samsung is rumored to be making a lot of the LTPO displays for those phones. They're rumored to recently shift up their production line, and they're starting to build the LTPO displays for the 13 Pro and Pro Max we should see very soon. In fact, if we rewind the clock a bit to the iPhone 10, reports say that Samsung made more money selling OLED displays to Apple for the iPhone 10 than they did off of the sales of their flagship Galaxy phone for that year. So now, sort of looking ahead at the iPhone 13, where are we going? Is the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max finally an opportunity for Apple to just destroy Samsung and shut them down for good? Or are the two companies continuing to sort of build this relationship, and are they just gonna be around for a while? Well, first things first, the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max look like great phones. Smaller notches, ProMotion display, great camera systems, all those look really cool, and they look like really nice high-end flagship phones for 2021. It also can't be ignored that Apple is trying to do everything they can to move away from their dependency on Samsung and other companies to building more and more of their components in-house. Of course, the big story here is with the processor, with the A15 Bionic and the M chips we see with Apple Silicon, but more and more of the little components are moving in-house as well. In terms of the iPhone 13 shutting down Samsung flagship phones, well, I think this is the same story that we have every year. Some people will love the flagship phone that Apple sells. Even some Android users might switch over and buy a 13 Pro or Pro Max. That's probably great and will be great for everybody. But I'm sure that many other people will buy the Z Fold 3 or the latest S23 or whatever latest and greatest Samsung phone Samsung is gonna make. People are going to buy that as well. Samsung obviously has an audience of high-end Android customers they want to cater to. Apple's catering to their own audience, and although two phones might be great, I think for the time being, this iOS versus Android debate isn't gonna go anywhere. Someone's gonna choose iPhone and someone's gonna choose Android. And as more and more of these smaller and some larger Android manufacturers fall to the wayside, I don't think Samsung's going to go anywhere. In fact, I think that with the quality of their phones and the features that they have, they'll probably continue to be more and more popular. So as some people will choose iPhone, others will choose Samsung, and I don't really see that changing anywhere in the near future. So what are your thoughts on this? Apple and Samsung, a very complicated relationship, a lot of jabs taken from one to the other. What are your thoughts on this very weird tale of frenemies, in a sense? Do you think that Apple needs Samsung to thrive, or does Samsung need Apple to sort of push them along and innovate and do crazy things? Or do you think the two companies are best served by having the other there to sort of keep pushing them along and keep innovation going and sort of making the best thing for the customer possible? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I will see you in the next one.